Hi, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to replace a Game Boy Advance SP case with an aftermarket shell. Here's the Game Boy SP in question. I got this without a charger at a yard sale last year for $2.50, and without a charger, the status was unknown if it worked or not. But for $2.50, I've done worse things with that amount of money. So I sat on it for a little bit, and then I started looking at replacement cases for PlayStation 1 just because I like the PS1, and I've always wanted those clear cases for it. And those are hard to find now, but Game Boy SP cases are actually pretty common. I guess they're still being made, or somebody has the mold now and is still making them. I found this seller on eBay, like I do most weird things, and I chose this seller over many other resellers because they included the two three-wing screwdrivers needed to take this thing apart, and I didn't want to have to go hunt down for that. So it comes in a few different colors. I chose blue for this one. And the really nice thing is they even include a sticker, so you can slap on a new serial number and what it is sticker, which is kind of cool. It adds to the total feel. If you look at this Game Boy, it's a little rough. Especially on the outside, we can see the paint is actually worn through until the internal color of the plastic, and it's been used so much that even the barcode here is and serial number is totally worn off. So a new case is well overdue for this thing, and for $2.50, why not? So let's look at what you get for, I believe this was $14, and that includes shipping. So it took about I don't know, 13-15 days for this to ship from China, and your mileage may vary with that, but you do get pretty much everything you need. It comes with a full set of buttons to match. It does come with the battery cover right here, so worthwhile in that case. And then you also get jammed inside the hinge cap, a Nintendo sticker, the screws, and the screw covers that go on the case to clean the look. So we have all the pieces here, and you get a new screen cover as well, which is super nice. So pretty much a total refurb for this with adhesive back. I've never done this with a Game Boy. I have done this with a DS Lite with a different case. Again, a busted DS that I bought, and I attempted to refurb it. Now with the DS Lite, it was really difficult. I'd not intended to encounter such crammed in parts, and especially with the hinge, I think I assembled it twice, and every time I assembled it, I forgot something. That was like 3 or 4 years ago. So I've forgotten how frustrating it was, or I was at that moment. So I figured I'd reattempt this anyway, because who doesn't love the Game Boy? There's also a look inside. So just some cardboard to keep things in place. And the power switch. So again, I've never done this with a Game Boy, and I'm just gonna kind of wing it with this video. We'll see how it goes. Let's start by removing the battery. Disassembly is pretty straightforward. Just remove the screws that get in your way. The nice thing that I liked about buying this replacement shell from this specific seller is because you get the tri-wing screwdriver and the correct size Phillips screwdriver, which makes things so much easier. This Game Boy that I got from the garage sale had kind of a wonky power switch. Only like 1 out of every 3 tries would I get a failure that the Game Boy wouldn't turn on. And I suspected that's just from a worn out power switch. So I just wanted to resolder and reflow onto that joint. Basic disassembly, popping out the nice screw covers. I don't recommend doing this, like repairing your Game Boy without replacement parts for the shell, because it is built pretty well and it's hard to take apart. All right. Getting the ribbon cable from that ZIF connector can be a little bit troublesome, just because you don't have a lot of leeway to pry the case open. Just be careful not to rip that screen. Right now I'm going to replace the monitor bezel and plastic cover. And going to put it back in the original monitor with new cover and the new top half shelving. Okay, top part is assembled and looks and feels pretty good. You have to feed the ribbon cable through the bottom case. This new shell also came with pads. Make sure you remove any of the old pads and clean underneath those if necessary. Mine was pretty clean. No like Kool-Aid was spilled inside. Don't forget the screw that holds on the cover for the middle part of that hinge. That was a detail that I actually forgot. But through the magic of editing, you never knew, except just now. That captive nut that holds the battery cover is another thing I forgot. So right now, before we button everything up, I'm gonna check to make sure it still powers on. The screen works, so the ribbon cable is seated correctly. So we can continue assembling. Make sure the power switch is in the right area and it's captured a little knob onto the board once it pops. Oh boy. Alright, it's not what I wanted, but we're getting there. Alright, that was expected. So definitely reusable. So when I popped out those hinges, I wasn't totally sure the orientation the case was. So I used some pliers to make sure I had it in the closed position, and you can put it in either way, so it'll fit in 180-degree increments. So as long as you have it closed and aligned with the notches cut out, the hinges will match up just fine. Now I'm going to put all the screw covers back on. Really worth getting a kit that has those. It's the details. And the Nintendo sticker. And the new replacement model number sticker, which I'll talk about at the end, is pretty important. Cool. So here's our new Game Boy. Well, our refurbished Game Boy. And let's look at our old case. That kind of got hurt in the process. Oh, it just continues to fall apart. And you know, these go here, but it's no big deal. Some final thoughts on the Game Boy Advance SP replacement shell. It's definitely not as hard as it looks. I had a lot of trouble just because this is the first time I've done it, and I actually fixed a lot of things in post that you didn't see. I actually rebuilt this about 2.5 times because I forgot some things. I forgot the screw that holds on the other part of this hinge, and I also forgot the captive nut that holds the battery cover screw. Simple stuff, but it's the details that you miss when you're disassembling it if you've only done this for the first time. It is way easier than the DS Lite. I thought the DS Lite was pretty difficult when I did it 3 years ago on my own. I think this is really easy, especially if you get an aftermarket case if you get a good aftermarket case, which looking at this, aside from some of the flash and sloppy edges, which could be a result from the plastic they're using or the grade of plastic, this mold fits perfectly. I can't tell if it wasn't original. The hardest part about this mod was popping out the hinges because you have to reuse that hardware. If you're going to, recommendations, if you're going to replace your old loved Game Boy Advance SP, I recommend this. Aftermarket shells, they work really well. If you need to do some kind of repair on your limited edition Game Boy SP, I would be a little wary about that because if you saw, I tried to be really careful about popping out these hinges and they broke the original shell. So that's something to keep in mind. if you're gonna do this for the first time, I would recommend watching a video, and if that's why you're here, great. Because again, I missed some things. But the biggest thing that I find really interesting about this is the new sticker that you get, which I looked all over, and all the stickers included with aftermarket replacement shells are the AGS001. So my original hardware, if you look at this, or the guts inside here, are an AGS101, which is the improved model of the Game Boy SP. The AGS001 is the first iteration Nintendo did for the SP, and it has what I believe is a poor quality screen and a backlight that has a little bit of bleed around the edges. So if your intent is to fix and refurbish these and sell it again, call it out what it is. You've changed the guts, but it's no longer OEM, so that's really kind of a risky business to do all that. My intent was just to fix this because I spent $250 on a busted Game Boy and I wanted to try it, and it makes for a good video to help people out. So again, for $9.50, what I paid for a replacement shell, if you need to fix up a Game Boy that's seen some time, I recommend this.